It is a lot more about your personal journey, about everybody's individual personal journey. For me, my biggest challenge was feeling like I wasn't doing everything that I possibly wanted to do. I wanted to be able to turn around and look back on my year and just know that I did everything I possibly could with that title. And I know for every woman, it's very different what they see in that. Personally, my goal is that I want other women to come and join us. I truly do believe that this was the best thing that I have ever done for myself. And I think that's important for everybody to find that little thing that helps them to grow to be a better person. I do honestly feel bad that some women feel like they can't do it, because I truly do believe that every single woman should step foot on that stage at least once, just for the simple growth factor.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Salt Lake Living with Joe Black, episode number 1. Today we have a special guest, Amanda Brady, former Mrs. Harriman, former Mrs. Utah American. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
So, how are you, by the way? It's been a minute.
Good. We are in the thick of all the kids' sports and business. Like, for Ty is taking off, so we're just kind of been a little crazy schedule-wise lately, but life is great.
I hear you. So let's just jump right in here, if you don't mind. How did Salt Lake find you?
So, kind of funny story, actually. I grew up in Virginia until I was 15 years old, and my parents, now looking back as an adult, kind of hindsight on the situation, I was the youngest of 7. I was the last one at home. And my parents quite literally sold their house, packed up their life, and we moved across the country with no plan. And the only reason we ended up kind of in the Salt Lake Valley, well, not the Salt Lake Valley, but we ended up in Utah, was because I had siblings that kind of settled in Utah with their families, older siblings. So I'm actually from North Ogden, is where I went to high school. So I was 15, until I went to college, and then very quickly met my amazing husband, and we got married in 2001 and settled right here in the Salt Lake Valley immediately. Like, we have literally never left since then. So I'm like, it's kind of just this whole full circle moment now. I've been here longer than I've lived anywhere else, but yeah, and we absolutely love it. We love it here. So we just kind of never move very far. We always tend to hop around very close by.
That's a pretty cool story to just pack up and go somewhere. That takes some guts.
Yeah.
Was Ty already in Salt Lake County, or what made you pick this over Ogden?
Yeah. So Ty is actually, his family is from Riverton. He grew up in the same house his whole entire life, right in Riverton City. And we love Riverton, which is why we ended up in Harriman, because we didn't want to be too far. It is such a central location to everything. You can get literally anything you need within just a few minutes. And then you can get to downtown Salt Lake. You can get up to the mountains. So that's we just wanted to be closer to his family. And most of his family lives kind of in this general vicinity. So it just kind of ended up working out really well for us as newlyweds, and now as not as newlyweds. So
that's cool. Where did you meet Ty?
So I actually was at Snow College, and I was down there. It was the Saturday. It would have been Saturday before classes started at Snow College. And he was down there hanging out with some friends. He was not attending Snow. He just went down to visit. A friend of his was getting married that weekend. So they went down to go to their wedding and stuff. And there was a big dance out in the street at the college. And sure enough, we met out there. And no joke, we pulled the classic 6 months later Utah story. We got married. So I'm like, but clearly we made it through, and it worked for us, because I'm like, here we are 22, 23 years later. So I'm like,
that's amazing.
Yeah.
What does a typical day in your life look like? You got 5 kids.
Yep.
Husband. beauty pageants, a podcast. Walk us through a day in the life.
It's not as exciting as you made it just sound, quite literally. I am lucky enough I am actually a stay-at-home mom right now. And for me, I have to get everybody off to school. So we have a high schooler, a middle schooler, and 2 in elementary still. And then our oldest daughter she's kind of doing her own thing. She's 21 years old. She's adulting. So I'm like, I don't really worry too much about her as far as getting her off for the day. But for me, really, it's right now I'm kind of thriving in this moment of it. It is all about my children and helping Ty to build Brady Insurance Marketing. So that's the company that we own together. So for us right now, for me, I get up, I get the kids off to school, I let them do their thing. And then I have a few hours, just that short window that I get to go and do my thing, which for me is I go to the gym every day. I am an avid gym goer. So I get to do that. And then usually it's whatever appointments I run for the day or like this interviews, things like that. And then by about 2 p.m, my day is over and it was back to all about the kids. But as you brought up, as Mrs. Utah, when I won Mrs. Utah in 2022, it was really a year for me that I thrived in everything outside of my community. Out in my community. I said that wrong. And for me, it was a much different year than it is right now. It was very much about everything I could book within that year that I held that title, because I wanted to make the most of holding that title, which is now why I'm kind of reverting back and focusing more on my family, because my family sacrificed a lot for me to be able to do that.
I'm not going to lie. That's one hell of a title.
Yeah.
So how did your journey to being Mrs. Utah American start?
I honestly had just had my last little girl. So she's 7 now. So it's been a few years. But my journey into the Mrs. Utah America program started back in 2019. Is actually when I started it. I was holding the title as Mrs. Harriman, and I held that title for 3 years. So 19 into 2020 was the year that we competed. And then 2021 and 2022 was the year that I finally was able to win the title of Mrs. Utah American. But for me, I started pageantry simply because I wanted something that was for myself. Like you said, I'm a mom of 5. I am married to a very successful human who is running this humongous insurance company now. And I needed something for myself. It helped me through dark times. It helped me to be able to come out of depression. It helped me to be able to find my own footing as a woman and in my own feminine energy outside of anything that had to do with my children. But it also gave me a way to push me to be a better person. And it also pushed me to get out in the community and get involved in things that I honestly never had the courage to do so before. So it's been quite an amazing journey. And now for me being a former, what I do now is I'm actually helping to mentor other women into the program and through the program so that they can show up and be their best self also. And it, honestly, being on this side of it, on kind of the coaching, mentoring side of it, is truly where my heart lies right now with it.
Tell me about the challenges that must have been along the way.
What was that? Say that again.
Tell me about the obstacles or challenges that would have been along the way.
It is a lot more about your personal journey, about everybody's individual personal journey. And for me, my biggest challenge was feeling like I wasn't doing everything that I possibly wanted to do. I wanted to be able to turn around and look back on my year and just know that I did everything I possibly could with that title. And I know for every woman, it's very different what they see in that. But for me personally, my goal is that I want other women to come and join us. I truly do believe that this was the best thing that I have ever done for myself, as far as honestly, just for my own growth. And I think that's important for everybody to find that little thing that helps them to grow to be a better person. And I do honestly feel bad that some women feel like they can't do it, because I truly do believe that every single woman should step foot on that stage at least once, just for the simple growth factor. But as far as my own personal, what I struggled with over the year was feeling inadequate. As crazy as that sounds, is I constantly wanted to do more, and I wanted to do more, and I wanted to do more. And I don't feel like no matter what I could have done something every single day. And I still honestly would feel that I didn't quite do enough, just because you want to pack it all in.
That is a really wonderful message. And you're right. Growth happens outside of the comfort zone, for sure. So what's it like now with the title? You're still trying to run with it and make, it was a long journey to get there, lots of obstacles. And like you said, you want to make the most of having it. What is it like now? Is it still something that shows up in your daily life?
Probably not on my daily life. It isn't something that is like brought up necessarily, but I am very lucky that I still get to be able to do like interviews like this, where I get to talk about my passion. We're actually coming up on the Mrs. Utah pageant is March 23rd. I think that's the date. I might have said that incorrectly. It's that Saturday, whatever that Saturday is in 2024. And so I'm really excited for these women. I have actually been mentoring a couple of them just through phone calls and meeting in person if they live close by. And so that right now is what I'm looking forward to, is being on the giving side of it. But for me personally, I do have a few pageant brands, because there are several different brands of pageants, and each one has their own little niche of things that they, maybe are specified in or what they look for. So I am kind of opening my heart right now to maybe competing again this year. I don't have anything for sure. There's a lot of maybes as far as like what's going on with my family. So, but I'm kind of at the point now where when it comes to a pageant, I will never say I'll never compete again, because I know that's not true.
Nor should it be.
Yeah.
That's cool. What's it like during 22 having the title? Give us a little bit of the good, the bad, and maybe even the ugly if there is any.
It was in 2022, carrying the title was more about, like I said before, it's kind of just more about like getting done everything you possibly can. But you do go, so when you win Mrs. Utah, you actually get the opportunity to go and compete at nationals for the national title. Now, the national title, it's held in Vegas, and you're in Vegas for 10 or 11 days. So that's why I'm saying, like, when I talk about sacrifices that your family makes, I literally handed my whole family over to my husband and just said, "Okay, bye, see ya," for 10 days. And it was a long 10 days. Ty and I have never been apart that long, ever. So it was just crazy, the whole thing. But it was also probably one of the most amazing weeks of my life. And that whole experience at nationals, I was doing hair and makeup, like professional hair and makeup. Your wardrobe is just out of this world for the whole week. And so you are truly feeling like a celebrity the entire week. People literally stop you in the hotel and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Mrs. Utah, can I take a picture? I live in Utah, or I'm from Utah, or my sister lives in Utah," or whatever. And so you really are treated like a celebrity on the highest level at this event. And so I had the most amazing time. I met the most amazing women through this program. And so for me, the whole year was just kind of building up. So after winning, it's kind of like you just do this big push to get ready for nationals. And so leading up to that, it was so much community service. I was able to deliver meals to police officers, collect donations for local football programs. I was able to sponsor different athletes, because part of my platform was also sponsoring youth athletes that can't otherwise afford their programs, because sports are expensive. I know, because your kids do sports. And so it is something that I am very passionate about, that I think it helps these children to develop skills that they need later in life. And so that's one of the things that Ty and I have constantly been able to support, is just sponsoring youth kids. We were able to, like I said, we were able to feed police officers through donations from local restaurants, from donations through the community itself. I was able to I had started it before a little bit, but I was able to run with my Be the Good podcast, which was just interviewing people from, a lot of it is from the pageant world, because that's kind of where my connections are. And we were able to share how they show up and be the good every day. I did a weekly challenge on my social media, which was a small and simple step that everybody could do to show up to be the good. And it was really just a year of intense showing up for everyone, including myself. And it really taught me how strong I truly am, because it took a lot. It took a lot of dedication. It took a lot of motivation. And it also took a lot of discipline, which you wouldn't think that it would, but it was definitely a conscious choice. And as far as the ugly goes, I can honestly say, other than just being sheerly exhausted by the end of it, I sobbed when I gave up that title. On stage, because you do it on stage with right before they crown the next queen, and I just ugly cried, because I had given so much to my year that I was proud of being able to move on, but I was also like, I just wanted to hold on to it a little bit longer. So it was kind of a mixed emotion for me as far as when I was able to give it up.
Yeah, it sounds like it took a lot to get it, and
yeah.
It definitely sounds like it must have been pretty rewarding, especially with all the community work. In fact, I can tell, you lived that life. Even your tagline on social with be the change you wish to be in the world. That's a cool experience. Do you want to talk a little bit about Be the Good podcast? I mean, what does Be the Good actually mean?
So Be the Good, I am going to try and do this without crying. I haven't told this story in a little bit. Nobody's asked me in a while. So Be the Good came from my mom. And my mom actually passed away from dementia, schizophrenia. So there was a moment when my mom was in the care center, and you had to understand that this disease slowly took everything from her. But she was not super vocal, as far as she couldn't communicate 100%, but she could say a few words every once in a while. She did not recognize who we were at this point. And I went to go see her at her care center, and I walked through the doors, and she was sitting right in the little community area in her wheelchair. And she just looked at me and she goes, "Oh, you are so beautiful." And it was a moment that hit me to my core, because she didn't know who I was. She had no clue that I was her kid. And reflecting back on her life, that's who she was. She was the human that gave compliments freely. She was the human that, even though it was her birthday, she found out it was my third grade teacher's birthday also. And she made a huge, huge poster and just this big deal for my teacher, when my teacher had no idea it was my mom's birthday. But for my mom, it was more about giving to everybody else. She was the first one that, if a neighbor was having a hard time, that she would be at their doorstep with a frozen meal or whatever she could to help them out. And reflecting on her life, I was able to just show up and be like her. And that was my whole goal. And when I thought of the tagline, Be the Good, it was also during a time that we in the world, we need to show up for our neighbors. We need to get back to that community feeling of, if I need help, I want to feel like I can knock on my neighbor's door, or I can pick up the phone and call them, and they will be here. And that's something that I have truly took to my heart, and I've tried to inspire others to do as well. And it came from the example of her. And how she raised us. And I didn't understand how important it was until she had passed away. And that's when I was able to truly basically live her legacy through Be the Good.
What a legacy that is there, as well as a way to honor her now. Talk about what you're doing. That's really cool and amazing. The Be the Good challenge.
Yeah.
What's that about?
So the Be the Good challenge, it was what I did through my reign of my whole year. And the idea is that serving is not something that costs a lot of money. It is not something that takes a lot of time. And I really want to drive that home with people. Be the Good and the challenge that I was putting out on a weekly basis, it was more about a small and simple act. Stand up and hold the door for a stranger. As you're checking out at the grocery store, compliment the worker. Tell them that their hair looks nice. It doesn't matter. And the idea is that it's something small and sweet and genuine. But the idea is that then they feel good about themselves and it encourages them to pass it on. And it's that ripple effect of just everything that comes into play. In fact, the idea of Be the Good, the challenge itself, was just something that everyone, small and adult, because I want to teach my kids and I want them to carry on the legacy that my mom left for me, that you don't have to show up in these ginormous ways. Now, yes, a lot of charities, they do depend on these dollars. A lot of these different things, they do depend on that act of, giving money or things like that do cost. And that's amazing if that's how you can give. But the idea is that that's not how it always has to be. It's also something, though, that you can choose how you give back to your community. Some people, it is easier for them because they don't have the time. They don't have, other ways to give back other than through monetary value. That's fantastic because it is necessary. But if you don't have necessarily the money to give, then give of your time. And if you don't even necessarily have time or money, then do it on your social media. You can do things so easily, like sharing, literally hit the share button, hit the like button, hit a comment. It is amazing how much those little tiny acts literally add up on these small businesses and what it can do for them. And so it's just finding ways that you personally can give back to your community. And my goal with the social media challenge was to show everyone that it's not super difficult.
What a cool concept. You never know how big something little could be in someone's life.
Right.
And it doesn't have to cost money or time.
Yep.
Smile or hold the door. It's an excellent concept. So what are the future plans for Amanda?
That's a great question. And right now, I don't really have an answer. I am honestly just kind of going with the flow of life right now. And like I said, I do kind of have a few things. Like I do want to do a pageant in the future, but right now there's a few big things that we have going on in our business in Brady Insurance Marketing that we are kind of hanging tight to see where that takes us. And so I'm being mom, which I'm realizing, and I know that is the most important role right now, is to be wife and to be mom, and I'm okay with that.
And that's what you'll remember most anyway, right?
Yeah.
What do you love the most about living in Salt Lake? Honestly,
living right here where we live, it is probably the most, what's the word? Just location wise. Honestly, I can get to hiking in the mountains right where I live. In fact, your wife and I have hiked this trail a few dozen times, I'm sure.
Cool.
We are so lucky where we live. I can get to some gorgeous hiking trails within literally probably not even 2 miles of my house. I can get to several more if I want to drive a little bit. And I can also, I have the convenience of not only being able to walk to school with my kids, but I also can get to, the ski resorts. this year is our first year. My son loves to snowboard. So we bought passes this year to be able to go up and snowboard. I can get to the resort, to world-class resorts, literally top of the world resorts in an hour.
Yep.
And so for me, and I feel like I live on the tail end, being in Harriman, we live on the very tail end of kind of Salt Lake County of where it is, but yet I am minutes from anything that I want to do. Not only that, but I also love that if I want to drive a little bit farther, okay, I can drive 4 hours one way and get to the desert and go towards St. George. I can drive a couple hours the other way and get up into the mountains and get up towards Bear Lake, and I can get up towards Logan. It's like such a central, right in the middle of everything. I mean, I can get to downtown in 30 minutes. So It's just one of those locations that it honestly it's perfect because you can do anything. And there is a lot to do outdoors in Utah. And so that is my absolute favorite thing about it.
I couldn't agree more. Someone told me a long time ago it's the only place where you can golf and ski in the same day.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
Exactly.
What would be some things you'd tell somebody considering moving to Salt Lake?
I would tell them to look at future construction. That's one thing, because there's a lot of growth happening right now, a lot. And it is definitely something that you want to keep in mind when you live out, if you're thinking about coming out here. But I think also if they are wanting to move out to this direction is basically look for something that they feel like they can settle into, because not only is the growth here, but it's also a matter of it's just such a good place. It is such a place where families are being raised every day, but you've also got, empty nesters, and you've also got these young couples, and it's such a diverse community, honestly, no matter where you go anymore, that I would be careful saying you're never going to move, because that's what I said. I was like, oh, we're here. And I was like, I don't feel like this is our forever home. But now that we're here, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like this is our forever home. I don't want to leave. So I'm like, there's a lot that goes into it.
That's so true. And speaking of, I think you have seen my current Harriman listing. It's new construction. What'd you think about that house?
I love that house. Okay, so here's what I love about that house is that I love the modern architecture that's coming in. I love that Harriman is definitely growing into this more modern, but yet it's not so much that it sticks out funny. And it's just this kind of perfect blend in this little neighborhood, because my house is a little bit older, not super old, but my house was built in 2008. So my house is it was the brown era of Harriman. And although it's beautiful, it's stone, it's got all the things, but I love the modern architecture. Like for real, that's my heart is where that's at. But not only that, but I have driven up there where that house is, because there's not very many houses in Harriman that go up for sale that I haven't looked at, because I'm like, we're always keeping our eyes out for something. But it has the most gorgeous views up in that little area. And the drive when you're coming down to come back out of the neighborhood and to get out onto the main roads I can't imagine what that looks like probably at sunrise. If you're driving east, coming home, driving west, the sun setting, you really do have some amazing views.
I agree. And like you said, the modern architecture with timeless class, it's a pretty nice house for sure. And the location right by Canyon. Thanks for being on. I'd like people to check out your podcast. You're going to be getting back on it soon. And what is your Instagram for people to follow you?
So my Instagram is mrs.amanda.brady, or you can search me Mrs. or Amanda Brady on Facebook. I think I don't even know. I don't even know Facebook anymore. But like, does anybody even do Facebook anymore? That's kind of how I feel. But like, I'm like, yeah, Mrs.Amanda Brady, maybe. I don't know. If not, just, start searching Amanda Brady. I'm sure I'll pop up eventually. But yeah. And then the podcast is Be the Good. It's so far, I think it's on only a couple platforms. It's not on Apple, I don't think, right now. And I am hoping to get back to it. It's kind of something that had to take a back burner because I've learned that is one thing. Okay, I'm like one last little tidbit. I had to learn through being Mrs. Utah that year. I had to learn when enough was enough, and I had to learn to say no. And that is very hard for me. It's something that, because I'm a people pleaser. I'm like everybody else. I want everybody to be involved and be happy. And I had to learn that my time was extremely valuable. And I had to learn when enough was enough and when I had to say no. And after my year was over, I knew that enough was enough and my family needed me a lot. And I needed to be there for them. And so the podcast was something that I kind of put on the back burner. But now that we're in a groove, I feel like as a family, that's something I want to pick back up because it helped me to get out there and to be the good. But not only that, but it also helped me to see how other people were showing up. And so I'm like, yeah, we'll get back on that soon. I'm like, we'll have to have you on, Joe, because I know you do a lot more than you take credit, than you talk about.
Well, thank you. That was very insightful and right. Take your time. Definitely thank you for being on, and people will go check her out. An amazing person. Thanks for being on episode number 1, Amanda. It's nice to have you.
I'm proud to be episode number 1.
Cool. Thanks.